Good evening and welcome to Kicking and Zooming, brought to you by Allstate. I'm your host, Anthony Sotera, and it is my pleasure tonight to welcome our special guest and his youth coach from Champions of 2019 Forges, Dominic Samuel. Dominic, welcome, my friend.
Thanks, Anthony.
Pleasure to have you on. And your youth coach from Sigma Academy, John Zervos. John, welcome.
Hey, Anthony. Thanks for having me on.
Great to have you on. To all the viewers out there, please keep your sign there on mute and the video as well off. Keep that off. You can ask any question through our chat room. We'll be giving away a trivia question as well, so you can put in the answer there when we ask that later on for a nice CPL scarf. But feel free to ask any question that you want to John or to Dominic, but have both mute buttons on the video and also on the audio. So away we go. Dominic, thanks again for joining us. Let's get right into it. Let's talk about, Dominic, when you fell in love with the game of football. And when did you know in your mind, Dominic, that your heart wanted this all the way to become a pro?
I would say I was about, 5 or 6, something. My mom used to, make me watch soccer games, and she would give me soccer balls to play with and stuff like that. So, just growing up, I always had a love for it. So I would say about like that age is where I was like, okay, like I want to be a soccer player. Then about, I would say I was about like 13, 14, probably around when like I joined Sigma, actually, is when like I was like, okay, like this is what I want to do for a living. And I want to go as far as possible and play as long as I can.
Let's go back to when you were a youngster. You said you were watching games when you were 5 or 6. Do you remember some of the early games you were watching? Was it games from overseas? Was it games here in North America? What were you watching?
More overseas. It was probably the Prem. My mom's favorite team is Manchester United, so I used to watch them.
Good stuff. Good stuff. John, let's talk about the day that you saw Dominic Samuel walk onto that field. And then as you got to know him and you got to watch him early on, what stood out to you early on about Dominic that gave you a good feeling, a feeling that maybe wasn't something that comes along every day when you saw him in training early on?
Yeah, I think the first thing when seeing Dom was, I think like everybody else, seeing his physical attributes and what he can do athletically, right? And as a coach, but also as a club and a staff, we recognized it early and thought, okay, this is something that we can work with at a young age. But I think above that all, a lot of people don't know, but Dom lived probably a 2-hour transit ride away from where we trained at the Paramount Fine Food Center. And, every training day he took a 2-hour ride to training and did the same 2-hour ride back.
Yeah, I had that in my notes already, but I'm glad that you mentioned that because I remember that as well.
Yeah. And we knew it. We seeing him do it every single training session, we thought, okay, this kid really wants it. He really wants to do it. So we knew at a young age he was quite mature and did a lot of that. And, we wanted to work with something like that can push him off to the next level.
Talk about his attitude when you got to train him early on with some of your other coaches. Was there a consensus that his attitude was spot on? It was the right attitude to have if you wanted to become a professional footballer? Or did you need to really engage with him, communicate with him about certain things that he needed to have on the pitch?
Yeah, I think overall, and you get to know Dom, he's a standout guy. He's comes from a good family, and he's quite good-hearted in that sense, right? But overall, like anybody else, I think he's got that competition in him when he comes to the field, right? So overall, when you mix the two of those together, you can right away his mentality was standout, and he wanted it more than a lot of other guys did. But at the end of the day, you can see it within the training environment, what he did and what types of things he did as far as pushing himself and others that are on the field.
Well said. I really enjoyed that, hearing that, out there to the young players that can learn from this. And that's why we're doing this player coach series. Dom, let's talk about it. In your key years, you know and you knew what your strengths were. But I'm sure deep down inside, you also knew what you needed to work on. And how did your coach, John, help you with these areas? Or even, talk about some of the other coaches as well. How did they help you work on some of your weaknesses that you needed to work on to become a pro?
So yeah, like John said, when I first got there and, growing up, you could see that, the physical part of my game was what everybody noticed first. But, there was definitely tactical things and technical things that I needed to work on to kind of take my game from where I was to the next level. So it's like just the particulars, the little things that I needed to do. That's what John and, Coach Bob and the other coaches there helped me, focus on. And they really focused on just making sure that I did that on a daily basis and I was consistent with it. And so once they kind of like branded that into my brain, like, look, like these are the things that you need to do over and over and over again. And once they become second nature, then, that'll take your game one step higher and one step higher and again and again.
Now, let's be honest, Tom. Was there a point there that maybe you didn't want to hear it anymore? You kept on hearing the same things and the same things over and over, that you wanted to get a pylon or something and say, Coach John, that's enough. I know what I'm doing. Yeah,
definitely. There's always that point where you're like, look, I'm fed up. I don't want to hear it anymore. I know, and you just keep repeating, I know. But, they're doing it for my benefit. And
it's like when your mom says at the dinner table, eat the carrots, eat the beans. There's a reason for it.
Yeah.
John, let's talk about the progression of Dom as a player. Did you have to push him in order to work on his overall game? Or was he a player that knew that you were there to help him, as he was saying, and guide him, and he trusted you, that you knew what was there for him to believe and rely on to get better?
Yeah, I know, like a lot of good players, I think they have their own intrinsic motivation, but I think like any player, I think sometimes they need a kick in the butt and they need that motivation. But at Sigma in general, we put Dom through a lot of experiences, and he's gone to Europe and did a little bit of a tour there in the Netherlands and got to play some fantastic competition and against some of the youth pro clubs there. And I think that was something that pushed Dom as well. But also knowing with Dom's physical stature that, once we got into an age where we thought he could handle it, we put him into these physical challenges, right? So pushing Dom in that sense was forcing him to be a little bit more technical, right? So when he was about the age of 17, we started pushing him into these under 21, these men's leagues, and start giving him those kinds of challenges, which ultimately pushed him to use his technical ability instead of his physical stuff.
Now, when we talk about pushing, John, we know some coaches that like to push verbally. Yeah. We know some coaches like to push with benching a player, on and on. How did you get the most out of Dom and your players today? Was it the verbal? Was it, hey, you're not going to listen, you're going to sit on the bench there and you're going to learn the hard way?
Yeah, I don't think it was much about telling him so much. I think it was more of just giving him those challenges. But there was time there he needed reminders, right? And that's normal. That's, hey, Dom, maybe try it this way or do it this way. And it's natural. Kids are going to make mistakes. They're going to learn from them. They're going to need guidance from them. So that was our job, and as far as myself and the rest of the staff, was to give him that guidance and reminders that he's going to face these experiences and these challenges, but how to overcome those. And that's the most important thing.
Outstanding. Dom, I was fortunate enough to work in League One Ontario from the first year up until 4 years, and then I made my way over to this great new league of ours, the Canadian Premier League. But I watched you a number of times play for Sigma. Let's talk about your experience and the games you played in League One and how it prepared you for where you are today and especially in that first year in CPL, knowing that week in, week out, you were going to play against some of the, if not the best players in the province?
Yeah. No, I loved it when I first heard that the League One was starting. I was excited for it, especially to be playing for Sigma, knowing that we were a very good team. I'd be playing alongside my friends and stuff, guys I've known for forever, being coached by Coach John and stuff. So no, I loved playing there, and it definitely helped me with my game as much as I could. Like you said, playing against some of the best guys in Ontario, week in and week out.
How cool is it to watch some of the younger players, Dom, when they were there, after their training was done, walking over to the other field and watching Sigma take on Woodbridge or Vaughan or TFC or North Mississauga at that time? That must have been cool to know that, hey, I was there 1.2 when I was a younger player, and now they're watching you.
Yeah. No, it's cool. It's cool just kind of reminiscing back on when I used to do it and how competitive those games were and how competitive they are now and stuff, and seeing the guys do well, and beat teams like North Mississauga that we didn't necessarily like, or like Oakville, for example, kind of thing. So those guys were, the teams to beat for sure, and those are always good games. So to go back and watch some of the guys do that is it's a good feeling for me.
Now, John, you had mentioned, and credit to Dom, he made that trip from Toronto to Mississauga on training sessions, games, you name it, by bus, not by car, by bus. And that is a commitment in itself. But I'm going to tell you a story that I never forget about Dominic. Watching a League One match, John, and you can chime in on this. TFC was taking on Sigma, and it was a night game on your field out there in Mississauga. And the game had just finished, and Bobby Semiotis, the coach at that time, was addressing the team, and I waited outside, and we were just talking about the game. And I remember mentioning Dominic Samuel and another player, to be honest, Giuliano Frano. And I said, the kid there, Samuel, he had a good game. He was solid. He was complete. He says, Anthony, let me tell you something. And he wasn't even fresh. I go, what are you talking about? Anthony, he put in an 8-hour shift at the lumber yard today, and he showed up in time to play the game. I was absolutely floored, John, listening to this. And I said to him, he worked at the lumber yard. Yeah. And he had played an unbelievable game. And again, he had mentioned the same thing about Giuliano Frano. I think he had said he worked in construction as well. And I had noticed both of you play an unbelievable game. This has to talk, John, about the credit, the fiber of this individual, Dominic Samuel, making sure that he didn't lose any opportunity to capitalize and play when he had the opportunity to get where he is today. Talk about that, John.
Yeah, it's. I think that was not even the only time he did that. He did it on a numerous amount of occasions. He would come to training every night, sometimes with his boots on, so straight from work. We would catch him in the parking lot sleeping, getting ready for the training session. I think that's just, he's got that obviously from his family values and of hard work and what it takes. So I think that's important because, whatever goal he had put in his head, he wanted to achieve no matter what, if it was work or if it was transit or the distance or whatever it may be. It's all the attest to what his personality is, right?
Well said. Dominic, I'm going to give you 2 words, and I want you to talk to the young players out there, and I want you to talk to them about these 2 words and what comes to your mind: commitment and courage.
Commitment. As you guys have been talking about, how I went from Scarborough to Mississauga every other day, 2 hours on the bus back and forth. Like, it was just, it comes to my commitment to the game and to these guys that come to work and train me and guide me to do better So like if I were to say like anything to these young players about being committed and giving your 110% all the time, like just to do it and to love it, and try and do what you can to excel at the sport that you love, especially football for me. And courage, and just have the courage to try new things and do things that you want to do. It's like for example, like trying new moves or stepping out of your comfort zone, like Coach John and Coach Bob like would do to me. Like instead of me complaining about it or whatever, I would be like, okay, like I can do this. I can have the courage to try it and to hopefully succeed at it. So yeah.
Well said. John, let's talk about not only when you were going through these sessions with Dominic or watching him throughout the games that he played. Let's talk about building a player, not just in the tactics, not just in the games and in the sessions when it comes to nutrition and all this other stuff. Talk about building a player as a complete human being away from the pitch as well. How do you deal with these young men, especially when they're going through some of the toughest times in their life, in these teenage years, where they're asking, they're probing questions, they're confused in some ways, they're afraid. Talk about building that player away from the pitch as well.
Yeah, I think honesty and giving them guidance is the most important thing, right? It's being honest with the player in their development. It's what do they need in order to get to that next level, and that may be the university level or maybe the pro level. But figuring out what their deficiencies are first, right, and building on top of that, right? It's I think a big component is the mental and the personality of the player is huge. The mental capacity to, one, trust your environment, but also in a personality thing is express yourself. If it's not just on the field, but off of it too. Be open to anybody, be open to try new things, challenges, what doesn't work and what does work. So you have to figure that out as a player, and that's quite important as far as their development goes.
Dominic, let's talk about it. Let's get right into it.
Mm-hmm.
Black Lives Matter. Everything that's transpired in the last few weeks, I'm getting goosebumps just getting ready to talk to this about it with you. What comes to mind to you personally, first and foremost, and then we'll get into some of the other areas. But what comes to mind first and foremost in your mind, what you watched worldwide, here in our country of Canada, but especially down south?
Well, first of all, everything that's going on right now, it hurts. It hurts to see. It hurts to hear. When it comes to like the Black Lives Matter movement, and all that stuff, I 100% support it and hope for change. And like I've experienced it my whole life. Not only here, but like living in the States for 4 years and stuff. So, going through it and seeing other individuals go through it, it's just it's hard. It's hard. And so I like I said, I just hope for change. I hope that everything that, people have been doing, the protesting, the signing petitions, the, speaking up, I just hope it does something that we can see, a change in the system, and that people can see, people of color as an equal instead of, inferior kind of thing. So, yeah.
What needs to happen in our sport now, Dominic? What do you think needs to happen in our sport now to really get into some serious talks for what has transpired in the last few weeks in your mind?
In our sport?
Yeah.
I think we just need to talk about it. talk about it and educate people on, you know, what to do, what not to do, especially what not to do. And just so that people know and are aware of what's going on, and so that we can prevent it.
What's the advice you want to give to young men out there today? What is something that comes from your heart and your mind that you want to share with them?
Just to, you know, be safe, and to, like, you know, always know what's going on around you, know your surroundings, you know, always do the right thing. You know, if it feels weird, if it feels off, it usually is. So, you know, try not to get into situations that put you in danger, or, you know, and put your life at risk. Yeah, it's just,
you know, a quick story, Dominic. I'll never forget years ago defending Mario Balotelli, who I love dearly still to this day. One of my sons has his Italian jersey, and racist chants and the banana peels that were thrown at him in Russia. And I was doing a show back then, and I'll never forget, overwhelmingly, it was positive and much positive feedback. But the amount of hatred that I got thrown towards me that I would defend or say something to go with Mario was shocking to me. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. No, it happens. It happens all the time. You know, it doesn't matter if you're white or black or whatever, but like, if you know, you love who you love, and, you know, you don't see color and stuff like that. You should treat everybody equally, and you know that, you know, everybody is equal. You know, and there's nobody inferior. And, you know, like you said, like, you were supporting somebody that, you know, was of color, who, you know, your son loves, and you've grown up to watch. Like, I've grown up to watch and stuff, and so, like, I like him too. He's a fantastic player. You know, he has a little bit of an attitude, obviously, but like, he does good things. And for people to, you know, throw such hatred at him, and you know, throwing banana peels and this and that, and insinuating different things, it's like, it's tough. And you know, that none of that belongs in sport at all.
Absolutely. Well said. Sad, but important that we talked about it, and I wanted to talk to you about it. Let's move on. Let's talk about some of the people that have been real important in your life to help get to where you're at, where a lot of young men would love to live the dream that you're living. 2019 champion, a professional player, traveling all across this beautiful country of ours. I'm sure there's got to be a family member or someone that believed in you, stuck with you, you know, every which way, and they never gave up on you. Who do you want to thank at this moment for believing in you, for getting up early, for doing all the things that you're grateful for?
Definitely my mother. Definitely my mother. She's been my rock, my whole world for my entire life. The amount of sacrifices she's had to make to, you know, get me places, to, you know, buy me things that I would need to, you know, for everyday life. You know, the meals, there's so much that, you know, I owe to her, for who I am today. And I would love to thank her.
And isn't it fair to say that all she wants is just a thank you? Guaranteed, I get you. That's all she wants.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it seems kind of unfair that that's all she wants from me, because of how much she's given me and how much, you know. So I'm forever grateful that I have her in my life, and that, you know, she's stuck by me through thick and thin. And, yeah.
Awesome. John, let's talk about it. 2019 champions. You watch this young man, Dominic Samuel, come up through the Sigma program, working hard, making those 2-hour trips, you know, digging, battling, working, and then you see him celebrating as I did on the field there last year, winning the inaugural, the first ever CPL championship. What goes through your mind? What went through your mind at that point to see a young man like that win a championship?
It's a special moment, right? And I think we experienced it once before that when Dom was able to win a national title with his NCAA tournament back in university. But it's a special, even more special moment to win a national title as far as the CPL goes and winning the CPL championship. And it's not just Dom, but we have another 15 guys or 14 or 15 guys in that group that do it, that are from Sigma. But it's very special because then you look back at it and you say, okay, the 2-hour bus rides there, the 2-hour bus rides back, the constant work within training, the down moments, the good moments, all that is all worth it because now you're forever first and you're the first CPL champion.
How important, John, is it for you still today and looking back on training these young men, now Dominic being a pro, that you prepared them not only on the field, but also in the video room when you're analyzing and watching their game, when it comes down to nutrition, when it comes down to watching game tape of other teams? How important is that you prepare these young men as well for all those things if they do want to become a pro as a young coach yourself?
Yeah, I think the main thing is preparing them to become a pro, right? And it's doing these not little things, but these little things to help improve them and help them transition them from youth soccer to pro soccer, right? Or the next level of soccer, and that's important. It's something that is not just important for me, but for the players. But as far as implementing these things, it makes you feel good when the success comes out of it. So all these little things as far as scouting the opponent, preparing video for your guys, preparing the scout for them, doing all the exercises and the trainings throughout the week to help prepare for the matches, it becomes all worth it when obviously stories like this happen.
Now, just before we close it out, we've got a little bit more we want to talk to Dom about, but I'm going to throw out the trivia question to all those out there that are watching for a nice CPL scarf. The first one to message into our producer, Nick, wins the CPL scarf. He'll get all your details. And here's the question. Very simple. What position does Dominic Samuel play for Forge? Very simple. Stop Googling it. Stop Googling it. You got to know it. You got to know it by heart. Dom, let's get to the most important part of this interview right now. What is your go-to meal?
My go-to meal. Oh, it is tough to kind of narrow it down to one. Anything Caribbean for me is a go-to meal. Secondary, I guess I'd say pizza. I love a good pizza.
Especially after some of those games in League One.
Some of those games in League One. Oh, that's all I look forward to is just the pizza at the end.
But it's also got to be cool on a side note there, Dom, when you're out for meals with the boys in Forge on the road there, enjoying a meal and getting ready for a big game and just talking casual and talking about the game and talking maybe about your families. How important is those meals with your teammates?
Oh, it's very important. Just for us to, get together as a team and to, just chat about anything other than soccer kind of thing. It just it grows like the brotherhood that we have, and it's basically, it's a family meal, like on any other Sunday kind of thing. You know what I mean? You just sit there and you just relax and you enjoy your meal with your brothers and your family. And then, sometimes like if we're on the road or whatever, like we'll do that and then we'll get down to business and do our scouts and stuff like that. But, for that hour that we have that with the meals, it's really good. It helps us relax. And
Nice. Let's talk about some of the hobbies you like to enjoy when you got some downtime and you're away from the pitch and you just want to unwind? What do you like to do? Please, please, please don't tell me it's just video games, because I'm tired of hearing all the young players talk about video games.
To be honest, I used to. That used to be
Good.
something that I would do, especially in university. And then, like, once I left university, I haven't really touched my PlayStation in forever. So, like, video games is not like something I do on a daily. I like to listen to music. I love music. Music is probably the biggest thing for me. Look it up. I have a whole bunch of friends who are DJs and stuff. So, like, I look to do that on my spare time. Or not many people know this, but I like to cook. I like to bake.
Okay, so
Like
you're rolling into my next question. During this pandemic, I know one thing. My best friend has become the fridge and the pantry chef.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this pandemic and talk about something that, through all this negative that we've gone through in the world, what have you enjoyed? You mentioned baking and cooking. What have you enjoyed on some of this downtime?
Just to get things done that I guess I normally wouldn't have time to do. Like I said, I've been, like, my mother and I have been in the kitchen all the time, trying new things, baking, cooking, stuff like that. I've gotten to, kind of purge, I guess, things that, old clothes, and go through old things that there's probably no way, no way I would do that, on a regular basis. Like, if I didn't have as much downtime as I do now. What else? Just getting out, getting out and walking, maybe, or,
Okay.
getting some fresh air or stuff like that. Like, wouldn't normally do that, I guess, but now that I do, and I can actually go outside and relax.
Good stuff. Last one goes to you, John, and then we'll wrap it up. Let's talk about how important it is for a young coach like yourself to have given the freedom, the enjoyment of training sessions to players like Dominic and others. And today, in the year 2020, how important is that for the young players to enjoy coming to training sessions and not feel that it's just something that they don't enjoy and they just want to play the games? Talk about how crucial and important it is to make training fun, enjoyable, so that the fruits of the labor will show up down the road.
Yeah, I think in the end, a lot of people like competition and things like that. So within the training environment, it's fun. You can do so much with the players. You got them literally eating out of the palm of your hand. And I think, like, a group like that Dom was in, they were one of our most competitive groups. They were the guys who worked quite hard and pushed each other a lot, right? And when we had that, and guys flying into training sessions and flying into tackles and doing all sorts of different things, that makes the environment fun. And I think, with that said, we had guys who were eager to be at training and ready to be at training, and that was just the competition factor that we added within the training environment. So that made it fun for not just the players, but the coaches as well. We had a great time coaching them. So, I think it still translates to our guys today. So we continue to hopefully do that.
Well, I had a great time having you both on here tonight. Dominic, Samuel, Forge, really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, getting ready for a season in 2020 with Forge. And John, thank you for taking time as well and giving back to the young players that have now, like Dominic, gone on to success, whether in NCAA in Europe and the CPL, of course, MLS, you name it. Good on you for really taking the time to join us and explain the journey that this young man took. And really, again, appreciate all of you that joined us out there. Thanks again. We'll post it up in a few days down the road. But again, Dominic, thank you. And thank you, John.
Anthony, thanks for having me.
Pleasure's all mine. John, thanks again, my friend.
Thank you for having me, Anthony.
Good night, everyone. Good night.
Night, guys.